Welcome to English Master Academy, where we help you take your English skills to the next level. I'm your host, Emma.
And I'm John. Whether you're a beginner or looking to perfect your fluency, we're here to guide you through the wonderful world of English.
Today, we're diving into a topic that might seem daunting, but is incredibly important for sounding natural in English phrasal verbs. They're everywhere in everyday conversation, and mastering them can really boost your confidence.
That's right, Emma. Phrasal verbs can be tricky because they often don't translate directly into other languages, but once you get the hang of them, your English will sound much more fluent. Today, we'll explore some common phrasal verbs, give you tips on how to use them, and share a few examples from our own experiences.
Let's start with one of the most common phrasal verbs, get up. John, what time did you get up today?
I got up at 6:30 a.m. I'm trying to be more productive in the mornings. Get up is pretty straightforward. It means to rise from bed or to stand up from a sitting or lying position.
Exactly. But what's interesting is how get up can be used in different contexts. For example, you might say, I got up early to catch the sunrise, or everyone get up from your seats.
And if we extend it a bit, we can look at get on and get off. These are essential when talking about public transportation. For instance, you get on a bus or a train and then get off when you reach your stop. Emma, do you remember the first time you had to navigate a city using public transportation in English?
Oh, definitely. I was in London and I was so nervous about getting on the wrong train. I kept checking the map, asking people, where do I get off for Piccadilly Circus? It was a bit stressful, but I learned quickly that people are generally very helpful if you ask politely.
That's a great story. And it shows how phrasal verbs like get on and get off are so practical. They're used in real-life situations every day.
Speaking of practical, let's talk about another useful phrasal verb, get along with. This one is about relationships. It means to have a good relationship with someone. John, do you get along with your neighbors?
I do. We're lucky to have really friendly neighbors. We get along well, and it makes living in the neighborhood so much more pleasant. It's interesting how get along with focuses on harmony in relationships.
Absolutely. And it's not just for personal relationships. You can also say you get along with your colleagues at work, which is crucial for a positive work environment. Have you ever had a situation where you didn't get along with someone at work, John?
Fortunately, I usually get along with my colleagues, but there was one time when I had a boss who was really hard to please. We didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and it made the job quite stressful. But over time, I learned to find common ground, and we eventually got along better.
That's a great example of how getting along sometimes requires effort and compromise. It's a good reminder that language isn't just about words, it's also about the nuances of communication and relationships.
Exactly. And since we're talking about managing situations, how about the phrasal verb get by? It means to manage or survive, especially when things are tough. Emma, do you remember a time when you just had to get by?
Oh, definitely. When I first moved to a new country, my language skills weren't great. I had to get by with the basics. I remember going to the grocery store and struggling to ask for things, but somehow I managed. It wasn't perfect, but I got by.
That's a perfect example. Getting by is about doing what you can with what you have. It's a reminder that you don't need to be perfect to function in a new environment. You just need to be resourceful and persistent.
And speaking of persistence, let's talk about another set of phrasal verbs that can really enhance your English, those with put. For instance, put off means to delay something. John, are you guilty of putting off tasks?
I have to admit, I do sometimes put off tasks, especially the ones I don't enjoy. But I'm working on it. Put off is something we all do from time to time. It's like saying, I'll do it later, but later sometimes never comes.
Exactly. Another useful one is put up with, which means to tolerate something that's unpleasant. It's often used in the context of dealing with difficult situations or people. For example, you might say, I don't know how you put up with that noisy construction next door.
That's a good one. It's important to know these phrasal verbs because they're so common in everyday speech. And they can really change the meaning of a sentence depending on how they're used.
Definitely. And it's not just about memorizing them, It's about understanding how they fit into the flow of conversation. One tip for our listeners: try to learn phrasal verbs in context. Instead of just memorizing a list, look for them in books, movies, or conversations. That way, you can see how they're used naturally.
That's a great tip, Emma. And to add to that, don't be afraid to practice. Use these phrasal verbs in your own conversations. The more you use them, the more comfortable you'll become.
Absolutely. And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. Language learning is a journey, and every step you take brings you closer to mastering English.
Well said, Emma. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope you found this discussion on phrasal verbs helpful and that you're ready to start using them in your own conversations.
Thanks for tuning in to English Master Academy. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends.
And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help you on your English learning journey.
Until next time, keep practicing and remember, you're one step closer to mastering English every day.